Some people are just too far gone. That's what we think, at least. But Jesus, he disagrees. In this video, I want to look at the demoniac in Mark chapter 5. It's about a man who was beyond help and beyond hope to everyone who saw him. And that same story plays out today. We see the years of isolation, of lies, of failed promises, of outbursts, of setbacks, of this downward spiral into a dark hole. And yet, where all we see is a tomb, Jesus sees new life. So Mark chapter 1 puts us on the lake. It's the Sea of Galilee. Jesus had been on the northwestern side in Capernaum, but then he and his followers departed by boat to the southeastern shore, to a place now called Kursi, or formerly Gergesa. It was likely a 6 to 7 mile trip that lasted 2 to 3 hours. But here's what's peculiar about it. They went to the region of the Gerasenes. That's the Decapolis, a collection of 10 cities. And these cities, though, weren't Jewish. They were Greek and Roman, very little Jewish influence. This was pagan country. They had temples where they worshipped gods and goddesses using idols, animal sacrifices, and emperor worship. Jews would have traveled away from there, not toward there. And yet that is exactly where Jesus wanted to go. Why? Because his message was not limited to one race. He came as a Jew and for the Jews, but not only for the Jews. Jesus had a universal mission. He wanted to share God's news to these people in the Decapolis. That's what's great about Jesus. He wasn't scared or repulsed by those who didn't look like him, talk like him, think like him, or act like him. Jesus was open. He intentionally moved toward the stranger. So Jesus went to the Decapolis, but what he finds is nothing short of astonishing. Right as Jesus steps off the boat onto the shore, he sees a man, a demoniac. It's one of the most miserable lives we see in the entire Bible. Mark describes him with 4 whole verses. When Jesus got out of the boat, a man with an impure spirit came from the tombs to meet him. This man lived in the tombs, and no one could bind him anymore, not even with a chain, for he had often been chained hand and foot, but he tore the chains apart and broke the irons on his feet. No one was strong enough to subdue him. Night and day, among the tombs and in the hills, he would cry out and cut himself with stones. Mark chapter 5, verses 2 through 5. In that demoniac's last encounter with people, they tried to chain him up. Those were his final memories, his last memories with people. He was loud. He was violent. He was unpredictable, and he was uncontrollable. And you just have to wonder, what about his mom and dad, his brothers and sisters and friends? But this guy was chained up for some time. But demons gave him supernatural strength so that chains couldn't even hold him down. And by this point, all people could do is banish him to the tombs. To his village, he was better off dead. Demons controlled his voice box to make him scream at random. Demons controlled his arms to cause him to pick up stones and cut himself. C.S. Lewis described their whole enterprise as the anguish and bewilderment of the human soul. So how did this guy get that way? Well, the Bible doesn't say. A strong possibility, though, is that his journey into that kind of slavery began voluntarily. Idol worship. He exposed himself over and over to these false gods and goddesses in the Decapolis. Paul, in his letter to the Corinthians, said that the sacrifices of pagans are offered to demons, not to God. The demoniac wasn't just talking to clay or wood or stone, these little figurines called idols. Demonic forces were behind them. The more he prayed to them and sacrificed to them, the more he wanted things from them, the more control they took. And eventually, his personality became shattered. They manipulated his movements, his thoughts, his voice. If anyone would have been considered too far gone, too far beyond any hope of redemption and new life, it would have been this man. But Jesus stepped off that boat and immediately saw the target of his mission in the Decapolis. Here's what we read in Mark chapter 5, verse 6 through 10. When he, the demoniac, saw Jesus from a distance, he ran and fell on his knees in front of him. He shouted at the top of his voice, "What do you want with me, Jesus, Son of the Most High God? In God's name, don't torture me." For Jesus had said to him, "Come out of this man, you impure spirit." Then Jesus asked him, "What is your name?" "My name is Legion," he replied, "for we are many." And he begged Jesus again and again not to send them out of the area. It seems that when Jesus was still on the boat or getting out of the boat, he was already telling Satan to loosen his grip on this man. I'm thinking the man, not the demons, saw a glimmer of hope when he saw and heard Jesus. And he thought, maybe this guy can help me. Exorcisms actually weren't only a Jewish thing at that time. It was common to use rituals and incantations to release a demon from a person. But not with Jesus. He was just speaking the word, and that man felt hope, so he ran and fell at Jesus' feet. And at that time, the demons took over. They knew exactly who Jesus was. He was no friend. His will determined their destiny. They knew that. So Jesus had the demon reveal himself by asking his name. And at that time, it was assumed that getting a demon to reveal its name allowed you to gain control over it. But that's not why Jesus asked him his name. Jesus wanted his followers to realize how entrenched this man was in demonic hands. The demon called itself Legion. That was actually a Roman military term that signified a troop of 5,000 to 6,000 soldiers. No human remedy could help this guy. But then the demons, they asked Jesus to send them among the pigs. They preferred to be attached to something living, I guess. Mark 5:13 says, "He, Jesus, gave them permission, and the impure spirits came out and went into the pigs." We'll talk about the pigs another time. For now, I want to focus on the man. Mark chapter 5, verses 14 through 15 reads this. "Those tending the pigs ran off and reported this in the town and countryside, and the people went out to see what happened. When they came to Jesus, they saw the man who had been possessed by the legion of demons, sitting there, dressed and in his right mind." The word translated possessed is the Greek word demonized, which is why some people say demonized. The man who had been demonized was different. I'm guessing Jesus and his followers gave him a nice pair of clothes. The people ran out and saw him sitting down next to his new friends with fresh clothes on, having a sound-minded conversation with them. The unthinkable had happened. It was a picture of true freedom and redemption. And I want to end there for now, but the story itself doesn't end with this man sitting down with clean clothes on. We'll get to the rest of the story in the next video. For now, I want to leave you with two thoughts from what we've read so far. First, Jesus goes to the tombs. Jews at the time stayed away from places like that. But not Jesus. He went to the place of the dead to bring new life. That is his mission. That is his specialty. No one is too far gone or beyond his reach. So don't give up. And from this passage, I think it's safe to say, keep praying, keep loving, and keep hoping. If you know a person who seems too far gone, keep praying, keep hoping, keep loving. A simple word from Jesus has the power to redeem and transform. Second, apart from Jesus, anything has the power to control us. For many of us, demonic oppression or even demonic influence is not a common thought. So it's easy to just ignore their strategies. But that's a mistake. C.S. Lewis said we should not keep them in our minds nor out of our minds. Don't forget them, don't obsess over them. But we should be mindful of them. Demons use whatever they think will be their best option to bewilder us and bring us anguish. They want to trick, tempt, deceive, scare, trap, enslave. If they don't oppress us, then they'll search for something that can. Sugar, pills, screens, glitter, praise, cash, naked flesh. Without Jesus, any of their strategies are good enough. Jesus is the only solution to overcome all their methods. They're stronger than us, smarter than us, and more motivated than us. But Jesus is the winner. Close walk with him is the only sure protection. He's the one that taught us to pray, lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from the evil one. God tells us the story about the demoniac to teach us that no one is too far gone. John Calvin wrote, "Though we are not tortured by the devil, yet he holds us as his slaves, till the Son of God delivers us from his tyranny. Naked, torn, and disfigured, we wander about until he restores us to soundness of mind." With Jesus, no one is beyond hope. With Jesus, no one is beyond help. And he's still bringing new life out of the tombs today. So that's it for this video. My name is Aaron Massey. I've been following Jesus and teaching the Bible since 2009. On this channel, I'm creating gospel clarity to help you cultivate a deeper, stronger faith. If this was helpful for you, I encourage you to check out my recent videos on Jesus' temptation. Thank you so much for listening, and I'll see you next time.